I'm Theo Black.
And I'm Sarah Black.
Have you ever lived under a rock?
Or on a spooky hill where it always rains, even in LA.
We too have missed many great pieces of cinema.
Join us as we watch the true classics,
The true masterpieces.
the truly iconic,
Or at least the ones where everyone goes, "Oh, you haven't seen blank?" What? So Sarah.
Hey, we watched The Player.
I actually haven't seen that many Robert Altman movies.
I want to hear the music though. I have seen more than you.
It was interesting to watch this and then the special commentary afterwards, and it was only for the opening shot, just to hear Robert Altman talk about it. And it's like, oh, Robert Altman, that's right, Robert Altman was in the film industry for a long time.
Yes, and we even watched a little bit of a documentary, although we didn't finish it, called Altman.
Yes.
They kind of reminded me, sort of told us about Robert Altman. But okay, so first, I have seen MASH, which is kind of his big masterpiece, which you have not seen.
I have not seen MASH. What?
And I didn't know that.
Get over it, everybody.
I might have even made you watch MASH for this episode if I'd realized it beforehand, but I didn't.
And so we'll do that one in the future. Click the button above for that video.
So I've seen MASH. I think I've seen Gosford Park. I retain no memory of it whatsoever. And I saw The Prairie Home Companion, which I cannot recommend to anyone, to be perfectly honest, which is too bad. I don't know, maybe we'll rewatch it. He's an interesting filmmaker.
I believe I have only seen The Player. What?
Oh, you haven't seen any other?
I don't think I've seen any other Altmans. I actually looked at a list, and I'm trying to come up with my head. I've seen clips of some of them, because you just see these things.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've seen a single other Altman movie.
So let's talk about Altman just a little bit, because maybe they don't know any more than you do.
You might be just as curious as I am about who Robert Altman was.
What did you know about Robert Altman?
He's a name that comes up in film classes and with your film buddies, and they're like, oh, The Player is such a good movie, or MASH, usually MASH. Mostly they mention, they think of him as a great auteur, and a lot of people would tell me that his work was spotty. Yes.
I've seen The Long Goodbye. That's another one of his I saw.
Right.
Which I do like as a movie, but not as a adaptation
yeah.
of that book. So Altman is known for, he positions himself as a rebel, I would say.
Yeah.
He started in television, went into movies, and...
Well, he started in industrial, like, making videos, and then went to television.
And then went into movies, and he definitely has a vision for what he wants to do, and he really wants things to be realistic and naturalistic, and to that end, one of the things he's most famous for is overlapping dialogue.
Oh, and Bonnie Chereau is here to see you.
Which is something I'm oh so fond of.
I like it, but it is a fine line between when it gives you that feeling of being in a crowd or being with groups of people, and when you just lose track of what is happening in the story because you're not following the main characters talking, or you can't tell. And as two people with hearing issues, it can be particularly unfriendly.
Yeah, I will say that I enjoy overlapping dialogue, especially sort of watching The Player. I'm sure some of some of Altman's other work, like MASH, are good, but I definitely have trouble with it. I can remember watching Primer, which is very out there, and Primer is like, I appreciate all the overlapping dialogue, but I cannot hear what they're saying.
Well, part of their problem was they didn't have a camera that recorded sound, so they had to get creative. He also, he had a visual style. Like, lots of long takes and pulls, and really playing with the way he frame things and how he'd move into the next scene and so on.
Yeah, I almost feel bad that we didn't have a better print of what we were watching, because it was good, but I just feel like there's so much he's doing with the camera.
Yeah, and I had seen The Player, for the record. I had seen it last probably nearly 20 years ago.
Long time.
A little bit of, I actually was the last film I watched in a summer film class during high school that I took at the community college. Saw it on my birthday.
Yeah.
And I remembered really liking it. And before we watched it, I remembered two things. That you saw Tim Robbins' penis. And that it ended badly. And as it turns out, I was completely wrong about the second thing. But you do see his penis. Very, very briefly. I don't know why that stuck in my mind. I'm sorry, Tim Robbins. It just stuck in my mind for some reason.
Tall guy, big penis.
I was young when I was watching this, so maybe that's why. Like, if I saw it now, I'd be like, whatever. Penises.
Yeah.
They exist.
Yeah.
And this is after recently, what did I see? Oh, Baywatch had a lot of penis in it.
Oh, yeah.
So now I'm, like, jaded.
Baywatch has a lot of boobs and penis in it.
No, it has way more penis than boobs.
Really?
I think so.
Yeah, okay.
The player didn't win a lot of awards or anything, but we are LA kids, and it is an LA kind of a movie, and I think it's one of the more interesting, genuinely dark Hollywood movies, although Altman himself said, oh no, I'm still being way too nice.
Yeah, in the documentary we watched, he called it a mild critique.
Yeah, and it was based on someone else's book,
Yeah.
who did do the screenplay adaptation, or
Something, yeah.
however you term that words down stuff.
Whatever, WGA says about that.
Scene 1, take 10, marker.
So the first thing you see when you watch The Player is a very long take, and it's fairly famous in cinema, especially among cinema peoples and all that. It's something like 8 or 9 minutes long, and it's fantastic.
Starts with kind of a wide shot, and then it'll go in and move here and move back. And
Yeah, it does an almost full circle. They don't quite go, I think, across, but they stay to one half of it. But they still make you feel like you've gone around in like 2 or 3 circles by the time you're done.
And it shoots through the window a few times to get some interior shots.
Which is pretty awesome. You hear Tim Robbins talking to actual, like, writers.
Okay, here it is. The Graduate, Part 2.
Oh, good.
That was actually, I think, Buck Henry. He's the actual writer for The Graduate, and he's pitching the sequel, Graduate 2.
Yes.
Which, thankfully, they've never made into a movie.
There's a lot of celebrities. I think Wikipedia said there's 65 celebrity cameos in this. And there's a lot of real Hollywood speak. There's, especially, this is from 91 or 92?
92.
And definitely the elevator pitch, this is, The Gods Must Be Crazy.
Yeah.
Meets Pretty Woman. Which, if you've ever seen either one of them is about an African tribe, I think, getting a Coke bottle and worshiping it as a god, and the other one is Julia Roberts playing a prostitute who gets Richard Gere to fall in love with her. So if you mix the two...
Who knows what you get?
I don't even know.
Yeah, well, and I love the
So sort of a cynical political thriller comedy.
Yeah, but it's got a heart in the right spot.
A lot of the real stereotypical wheeling and dealing of Hollywood, where everybody's just trying to get their project done. They're trying to entice the producer, which is what Tim Robbins plays.
You're the writer's executive, aren't you?
But writers pitch to him, and everybody's trying to get him into their story, change their story so he'll be into it.
Yeah. We even see him getting accosted by someone as he gets out of his car.
A writer.
A writer, you know.
And something to bring up is that this is also back in the days when you couldn't just computer animate really long opening shots. You can still do that to a good effect, but this is a guy with a camera actually shooting uncut for 8 minutes.
It's mentioned in the director's commentator track that they had to re-asphalt the ground or something.
Yeah, because it wasn't smooth enough for their dolly or
whatever.
whatever.
That's crazy to me.
It sets everything up. It even sets up the postcards with the threatening statements on it. It sets up who Tim Robbins' character is.
Yeah.
So it's not even just a flashy, look at what we did. It also serves a purpose.
Yeah.
It's mine. It's completely blank. Completely blank.
I can do anything.
I'd like a beer, please.
We don't have.
So we then start to follow our hero, Tim Robbins.
Protagonist. This is what we use the word protagonist for.
Yes, our protagonist. And he goes to to a restaurant, and we get more of the sort of Hollywood feel. I mean, the whole thing is setting up movie making. But we get to the restaurant and we see just actors in the background. We see one of the guys from Clue.
Lunching with the enemy.
He's never a part of the story. He's like
just
an
sitting
extra.
there, yeah.
It's basically famous movie stars as extras throughout the whole thing.
Are you pitching me a dream? The way you say that.
An exec over at Fox. Was until this breakfast, anyways.
We'll leave it to Cher to wear fire engine red.
It actually gets confusing because then you have like Whoopi Goldberg actually playing a character, not playing herself. Lyle Lovett actually playing a character.
Yeah.
So whenever someone comes on the screen, you're like, is this person themselves or are they actually playing a character?
Yeah. They even do something silly, towards the later part of the movie where they have they have two McGee and
McGee and McDowell.
Yeah,
they have Malcolm McDowell and then Andy McDowell.
Yeah,
both playing themselves, not playing extra.
You guys made that comment while we were watching it, and then in the movie they make that comment.
Yeah,
it's funny. I just ran into Malcolm McDowell out in the lobby.
It's very facing. It's very talking about itself.
Postmodern, I think.
It's a comment on itself and the industry.
Yeah, the movie references itself constantly. It talks about itself, about what's going on.
Yeah.
It's very meta.
The opening shot of Wells' Touch of Evil was 6.5 minutes long.
6.5 minutes, Walter?
3 or 4 anyways.
But we are with our guy, Tim Robbins.
And he plays...
Something Griffin. He's definitely supposed to be somewhat stereotypical Hollywood executive type.
Angelica, Griffin Mill.
Oh, hi.
Good to see you. You too. You're looking great.
He's not really given, you're not supposed to think he's a horrible person or anything to start out. You're just supposed to think he's a wheeler and a dealer. And they kind of keep that up. He drives a Range Rover. He has a fax machine in his car. All throughout the movie, they put these bits of, he's this high-powered guy. He loves his water.
I'd like a Vittel water.
It feels like he's asking for a different brand every time.
Yeah, but he knows all the brands. He knows which brands he wants at what time.
I'll meet you there. Order me a Caesar salad and a Crystal Geyser.
Yes, and he's presented as being possibly in trouble, mostly because Peter Gallagher, who's not playing Peter Gallagher, he's playing, I forget the character's name, is been hired from Fox or something like that.
Should I be looking for a job?
Yeah, so it's sort of an unfair injury, a writing term I'd like to use, that he's been given, is that he's sort of in trouble for his job for no reason.
Right.
Which is how often things go in Hollywood. I mean, there's no metric to measure.
It's all about the new hotness all the time.
Yeah.
You're only as good as your last film.
Yeah, and so he's, feeling pressured, and we're seeing him just throwing screenwriters and their ideas away like nothing.
Yeah.
But that's the industry, and so you're seeing the different levels of it and how it affects him and the people below him.
Yeah.
It sort of builds it starts to build a character of who he is.
Right, and it's not a hero, as you said.
Yeah,
he's our main character, but he's not heroic.
No, he doesn't really.
But we do have these moments in the beginning where he's getting threatening postcards. And he's possibly in danger because of some other guy there that makes you potentially sympathetic towards him.
Potentially.
Because he's vulnerable. So you're feeling kind of bad for him. And then he beats Vincent D'Onofrio's brains out.
Keep it to yourself!
Poor Vincent D'Onofrio. A young...
Looking skinny. Yeah, he's lost weight since Gomer Pyle.
But I'd only ever seen him in Law and Order, which he then has weight for. Again.
Yeah. He's a big guy. He's a
big
tall,
guy,
broad guy.
I've seen him as Full Metal Alchemist, I guess, which must have come before this.
Full Metal Alchemist?
Full Metal Jacket.
Which is where he's Gomer Pyle.
Yes. Okay. Okay, we're going to cut that out.
No, I want to keep the part where you say that Vincent D'Onofrio is in a Japanese anime.
I don't want to keep it. So we've talked about the postcards. He figures out the postcards are from a writer, and he figures out who he thinks that person is. So we follow him, and he meets the love interest of the story, who is the girlfriend of
Vincent D'Onofrio, who doesn't seem to like him very much, and he calls her the Ice Queen, so I don't think he likes her either.
Yeah, Vincent and her are not having a good relationship. Griffin is playing sort of stalker in the bushes to her.
You English?
Yeah. Well, no, not really.
Well, where are you kind of sort of not from?
He's really trying to find out where Vincent is because he thinks Vincent's threatening his life. But he's also doing some weird, I don't know, creepy, potentially romantic thing with the Ice Queen. Everybody likes romance in a weird way.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of creepy. But then he goes and finds Vincent D'Onofrio. They have a little altercation. He drowns Vincent in a small pile of water. Puddle.
Yes, well, but that's where the meta-ness comes in, because it comes up again and again that, you need, like, love stories, you need happy endings, can you get Bruce Willis and Julia Roberts?
Yeah.
So, in a way, that's where it is very self-reflective, like...
There's all this commentary from the movie on itself and on cinema.
Yeah, and on Hollywood movies specifically.
Hollywood movies specifically.
Which usually have to have happy endings, which have to be...
If we're going to go back to talking about Altman, he didn't fit into that system.
Right.
He never did. He always tried to make smaller movies. He made Popeye, didn't do well, and I think never looked back.
Yeah.
This is really that kind of commentary. Griffin is really probably the kind of person he hated.
Yeah. Probably.
Yeah. And so that's the setup for the rest of the movie.
Right, which is where Something Griffin is trying to...
hide the fact that he's murdered Vincent D'Onofrio. Like, he does just enough, like he knows enough about story to break the window and, steal his money.
Hide that he's killed this guy, somehow get back at the top of his game at his studio, romance the widow of the man he just killed.
The police came to see you about this dead writer.
So, this whole setup with, murdering Vincent D'Onofrio, the editing for the scene seemed weird to me.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked all the shots. Altman has a perspective and a look of, putting the camera and trying to keep it naturalistic. He's both using and not using the camera. But the editing is funny because he sort of jumps between lines quickly, cuts back and forth.
Keep it to yourself! Keep it to yourself! Keep it to yourself!
It creates an odd sense of pace.
Yeah. The whole movie has a little bit of an odd sense of pace. It's a little disorienting and disjointed, but I'm not sure that he didn't want to do that.
Maybe he did.
Because it's an odd, disjointing, disorienting movie. You're always running into these movie stars in various places. You're always kind of half overhearing their conversations.
Yeah.
Even while you're trying to keep track of what's going on with Something Griffin.
What's he doing here? Goldblum, he's a friend. Oh, Larry Lee. Came with Sally, he's a buddy. What's going on with my job?
They do have a bunch of scenes where they sort of edit on dialogue funny, or they're sort of have the camera looking at something and the dialogue's in the background.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little distracting from the experience, but maybe that's a little bit the point. Maybe if we watched more Altman, we'd be more used to it. I don't know.
I definitely like the style that I'm seeing, and it really makes me curious to see MASH. But it also, because the pacing is so off, I'm not exactly sure what I'm supposed to be feeling, taking,
But is the pacing off, or are you really used to a different style of storytelling? I don't even know the answer to that. I'm just saying, putting it out there, that might even be his argument.
Maybe that is his argument, yeah.
And so much of the movie is about making fun of that kind of 3-act, hero of 1,000 journeys or faces or whatever, save the cat. Like, there's a lot dedicated to making Jaws, making Star Wars, making these things happen again.
How plot happens.
Yeah, but it is formulaic, and it's formulaic because we like formulas, and there's nothing wrong with that. But on the other hand, if something then defies that structure, does that make it bad? Are we not used to it?
Maybe that's the commentary he's making. I could believe it.
Yeah. I mean, certainly when it's distracting you from understanding what's going on, I'm a little inclined to be...
That's the thing, why it's... specifically him drowning Vincent D'Onofrio is I feel like I'm pulled out of that scene by the cutting, and there are sections and pacing in the movie later where I'm sort of taken out of the movie.
Because there's very few people... Okay, Griffin is not sympathetic, but who is sympathetic in this movie?
Almost no one through the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's blood-sucking, cock-sucking Hollywood type in this movie, pretty much.
How about mudslide kills 60 in slums of Chile?
That's good. Triumph over tragedy sounds like a John Borman picture. You still have a happy ending on it, the script will write itself.
The closest you get is like Bonnie, the girl.
And that's really because what happens to her at the end. Prior to that, I mean, you feel bad for her because she's in a vulnerable position because she's into Griffin and he's getting into the Ice Queen.
Yeah.
You've been stringing me along like one of your goddamn writers. What is this getting Levison to send me to New York? What is that about? Are you trying to get rid of me?
But, I mean, there's nothing else about her that's necessarily... Like, really, she's got this assistant who's annoying, but there's nothing about her character that is like, oh, I've been in... Yeah. Like, what an amazing character. It's just like, she's kind of in a bad place.
Yeah. You don't feel... The person who's replacing Griffin isn't, like, some nice guy.
No.
This head of the studio isn't, like, fixing a problem. He's just...
No. And even Vincent D'Onofrio, who could feel bad for getting, like... beaten to death or drowned in like 6 inches of dirty water is, possibly not a very good writer, very angry.
See you in the next reel, asshole.
Antagonistic. And,
he's
he's drunk when they're doing it, which doesn't add to...
Yeah, so there's there's no one you're gonna really get into with the movie anyway. There's no, entry point character as far as that goes. So maybe it's supposed to be disorienting and draw you out.
See, Levison can't wait to get in bed with Levy. This piece of shit idea will blow up in both their faces. And then I will step in and save the day.
Movies like Singing in the Rain or The Artist or La La Land, those are more recent.
Sunset Boulevard, A Star is Born, Citizen Kane even ventures in there a little bit.
Maybe Sunset Boulevard is slightly darker, but these are all kind of about how the magic of movies and the wonder that is LA in the movies. The Player, not so much.
It's probably the most cynical. They often have a way of backhandedly complimenting themselves. I recently watched The Bad and the Beautiful, which I think is another potential candidate for this, although now I've seen it. But it has a way of saying, we're all really depraved, but don't we make good movies? Don't they?
Yeah.
I mean, even Sunset Boulevard is a little bit like...
We make these fantastic movies even though we treat everybody in the industry terribly.
Well, but that's the thing. In Sunset Boulevard, for example, it's really his own folly. It's not Hollywood that chews him up and spits him out,
Something that's so honest about The Player is it's about the money.
Yeah.
And they don't, in Sunset Boulevard, they don't talk about the money exactly.
No, well, but he's poor, and that's the reason why he
does it, but that's not about how Hollywood takes it.
Yeah, and he's still trying to write this great art piece.
Yeah.
He's not just trying to make... All anyone is concerned with in The Player is money.
But all I'm saying is I think there's a lot of time and money to be saved if we came up with these stories on our own.
Maybe not the writers so much.
Them less so, but he doesn't treat them like they're any better, because they're when they're pitching, they're sort of going wherever with their pitch.
Well, but Hollywood movies also usually don't talk about the writers and the producers quite that way.
Yeah.
They're often about Living in Oblivion is a fun one.
Yes.
They're often about making a movie or producing a movie or whatever. They're not often about the pitching, the internal workings of the studio the same way. I can't think of one. I'm sure there is.
There is, but it's movies like La La Land are what you're more sort of used to, and I feel like those are the ones that get translated better to other parts of the country.
Well, it's about an actress trying to become, I mean, that's a common one, because those are always like the rags to riches of Hollywood type story.
And, you know, we've talked about Altman and his place, so it makes sense that he directs this movie and makes it that way.
Well, he had that rebellious sense, and, like, he didn't want to just make what the studio, he had his own vision.
Yeah. So it poses this interesting question for us.
Mm-hmm.
Would somebody not from LA, not from Hollywood, not into movies, would they really like this film?
I don't think so. I mean, you don't have to be from LA to be really into movies.
Yeah, there's plenty of places.
I think if you're into movies, but I mean, and even it's the early 90s, and most of these actors are famous enough, these celebrities, that you would recognize them now.
Yeah.
But it really helps if you were alive and around for some of that time or watch the movies. If you don't have that reference, I can't imagine, like...
It feels a bit like a film person's film.
Yeah.
Like, I totally believe Joe Schmo could enjoy this. You know, random person, Joe Schmo can just enjoy this, whatever.
Jill Schmo, is this a reference to... You said, like, Joe Schmo?
Yeah.
Are you saying your girlfriend, who's not as into these things?
Well, Jill's, you know, John Doe, Jill Doe, Jane Doe.
Yes. Yeah, it's not quite like, I'm not into sports.
What's a sport, Sarah?
It's a guy throwing a ball at a thing. And if he gets it to the thing, points.
Yay!
Lots of points. But I've watched sports movies just fine. I mean, I know that I actually do know the basic rules of a lot of sports. Not quite as bad as I just made it seem. But if there's a good movie about a footballer or a basketballer or a baseballer, you know, I'll see it. I can follow along. It's great. If you don't know who a lot of these actors, who at least half of them are...
Yeah.
You're going to miss all those references. Is that going to mean anything to you? I mean...
It has. I feel like the movie has less power if you don't understand all the references, if you know nothing about filmmaking.
So, if you haven't seen The Player, and you don't know much about movies, and you're watching this podcast for some reason, I would say maybe keep working on it a little bit more before you get to The Player.
I feel like you'll have to... This is one you'll have to come back to.
Yes.
You know, we should have put that at the beginning, but... So to follow into the second half of the movie, we really see Tim Robbins pursue the Ice Queen. You know,
and we see his penis.
And we see his penis, although that's really almost the last 5-10 minutes of the movie.
And it's not the entirety of the last 5-10 minutes.
See,
it's about a half
that's
a
how
second.
long his penis is. It just fits an entire 10 minutes.
Oh, God.
You see that romance, and you see Tim Robbins in trying to deal with the fact that he's under suspicion of murder because he's... As much as he covers it up as a robbery, it's pretty obvious that he's the one who did it.
You know, if Pasadena Homicide doesn't think it's bullshit, they got a complete report. You met Kahane at the Rialto. You got drunk with him at a Japanese restaurant. He left before you did. That's the last time anyone saw him alive. Except you, maybe.
Yeah.
That's really what the second half of the movie is about. I find the romance plot odd.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure. Because... even though he doesn't say it until they make love later in the movie, he's just talking to her like, oh, you know, she knows he's killed Vincent D'Onofrio.
Something else I have to tell you. This isn't easy for me.
Yes?
So I'm not entirely... But she just doesn't care?
I like it. One thing you have to remember about me is I like terrible people and bad things. Like... C prefers Alien Prey over Sound of Music, for example. Yeah, she's not very nice, but he takes her out to do things, and she likes that. She seems to actually genuinely like him, and he genuinely likes her, and they're both maybe sociopaths. Everyone in this movie is a sociopath.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they're not all full-on sociopaths, but definitely like...
No. He might be, though, because he just kills someone.
Yeah.
And I guess that's... And I don't know maybe if this weakens some of Altman's attempts at critique, but everybody's awful, so you might as well root for Griffin as anyone else.
Yeah, I mean, he it's not so much you're rooting for them, him or anyone, you're just sort of like, I'm so curious about this train wreck of a human being and of a situation. I want to know how it ends.
Yeah, and there's this anticipation of like, is he going to get away with Isn't he? Because he does it so sloppily.
Yeah.
And it looks bad, like he's gonna get his job taken away. And the sex scene.
Don't say anymore. Don't.
I was responsible.
I love you. Don't.
It's my fault.
It's really awkward and uncomfortable, and I kind of like that about it.
Yeah, this is another one
Because
of those...
it's not romantic.
No.
It's not good. It's a terrible thing that's happened, and they're terrible people. That's what he's kind of railing against, is these kind of like beautiful movies that are just nonsense, that have happy endings for no reasons, where people just...
The mud scene is how I feel. It's just the most... That's that movie, that's the filmic metaphor.
Yeah.
Because they're both... Like, you know what a filmic metaphor is, right? A filmic metaphor is usually a scene or a few shots in a row. It's a condensed period of time in a film where it doesn't always fit exactly into the verisimilitude word of the rest of the movie, but it's sort of the theme or the statement of the movie.
Yeah.
And I feel like them in that mud is the filmic metaphor of the movie, because he's in this road situation, she's in this situation.
And they're just wallowing in mud,
and they're just
like
wallowing
the pigs,
in mud, like the pigs, and he looks
animals.
And he looks miserable, and she looks miserable, but they're also together and
Yeah.
having sex and stuff, and it's sort of like, this is what it is.
But I remembered it having a bad ending, and it doesn't. And normally this drives me crazy, but the reason that it has a happy ending is because Hollywood movies have to have happy endings.
What took you so long?
Traffic was a bitch.
He sets everything up so that it does lead to his happy ending, but really the reason there's a happy ending is because this whole film is a satire and it has to end with a happy ending. And that can often drive me nuts, but in this case I'm okay with it. Let's go with it. Because then it even satirizes it within it, where that horrible film he's been working on didn't test well with a bad ending, so they gave it a happy ending.
Took you so long.
Traffic was a bitch.
So, like, the film within the film had to be given a happy ending, so the film has a happy ending, and it's just...
It's so many layers, it's kind of awesome.
I like watching films for character and feelings, and this is not one of those kind of films, but it manages to be so weird and uncomfortable and strange that I enjoyed it anyway, because I guess the thing I enjoy after character and feelings is just misery.
You know, one of the things Wikipedia says is that Altman focuses on ensemble casts, and even though this is very much the Tim Robbins movie, because it all follows his characters, there's so many other people in it, it feels ensemble. So it's hard to really become too invested in any single character.
Yeah.
But you become invested in the cast. Invested in the sense that, like, you don't feel like you want them to win, you feel what they're going through.
Yeah.
And so when you get to the happy ending, even though you're like, God, these are all terrible people, and I guess this is just how it is, that's okay, because you kind of expect it. It's somehow, you know, your movie has to be surprising, yet also end exactly the way you think it would.
Yeah.
And somehow it manages to do that.
The only weird note for me is Bonnie.
Yeah, well, it didn't have to end this way.
I want you out of here.
Good thinking, Larry.
I'm going over your head, Larry.
Bonnie, you're fired.
They give her kind of that sad ending, and it feels a little like they did that just to have someone you felt bad for at the end, and that doesn't quite work for me. I guess I wanted it to just all be horrible.
I kind
bad people getting ahead in life.
I don't mind that as much, because I feel like there is something in Hollywood that tries to be moral, because not every movie is really scumbaggy. And I sort of appreciate that he put that in there, because it kind of feels like you need to have someone in there who's like, this is all wrong.
Yeah.
Because you need that counterbalance to Griffin and to the end of the movie.
I felt like you didn't need that counterbalance, because you either have it in yourself or you don't, kind of a thing. But that's it.
Yeah.
Please. Very important. Griffin, please, can we talk about it?
Bonnie, you'll land on your feet, I know it.
So, you glad you saw it?
I definitely really liked the movie. I want to see more Altmans, because it's a good movie, and I want to see more of his style and see this overlapping dialogue and naturalism and whatever. I also just think it's a solid movie. It really does portray a side of Hollywood that you don't get to see a lot because most of the time Hollywood doesn't want to make these kind of movies about itself.
Yeah.
It really shows, you know, as much as people are good or bad in any situation, Hollywood is about making money, and it's sort of refreshing in a way. And I like that, and that's also kind of why it's iconic, is because it really is a bit of it throws shade at the industry that made it.
It held up well for me. I haven't seen it in 20 years. Still like it.
Yeah.
Would easily watch it again. I think we should make plans, not in the near future, but we should do MASH and The Long Goodbye, although there were a couple others on his list,
that Western,
Mr. Miller and Miss McCabe or something like that looked really miserable.
Yeah.
And a couple others that looked like they could be interesting that I haven't seen either, so maybe we should do those instead.
I'm totally on
You've got to see MASH, though.
I've got to see MASH. I'm totally on the Altman train. You know, if the movie already good, I'd watch it again. Definitely on the Altman train.
Cool.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's do it right now.
That's it. You free as a bird. No witness, no crime.
Yeah, that Avery woman thinks you just got away with murder.
Everybody does, Mr. Mill.
No stars.
No stars.
No stars.
No stars?
No stars.
No stars?
No stars.
Stars?
I don't write postcards. I write scripts.
What took you so long?
Traffic was a bitch.
Is this going to be funny?
Yeah, it'll be funny.
Really?
I want Bruce Willis.